Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Earthly Headlines. Today we're going to look at two different articles. One's a little bit short, and then the other one I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. But they both have to do with very similar subjects, which is the early peopling of a certain regional area. And the other one has to do with an early Neanderthal. But we'll get to that in a second. So this first article has to do with the Philippines. They pushed back the dates by a lot in terms of the earliest members of the genus Homo. And not necessarily Homo sapiens, but possibly Homo erectus. They're still not sure yet, but the article is really interesting. Basically, in a nutshell, these scientists found this rhinoceros skeleton that has obvious marks left by sophisticated tools in terms of trying to get to the bone marrow in the bones, obviously. And also there are some cut marks that were obviously made by some sort of tool that basically are trying to get the muscle and the fat, all the meat off the bone. And here's one of the bones here, and then this is a really fossilized bone as well. And they found it on the island of Luzon. Let me see if I can find a video here. I don't have a video. They also found tools such as knife flakes and hammers, and they don't, although they don't have actual human remains, they're extrapolating that it had to be some sort of hominin that did this. So that alone is able to push the dates back of some sort of hominin presence well into the Pleistocene. So the date before this discovery in terms of the earliest human occupation in the Philippines was about 67,000 years ago, but now it's been pushed back 700,000 years, between 600 to 700, almost 800,000 years ago. And first of all, they found 57 stone tools, which is called the Kalinga site, alongside the rhino bones, the cut marks, the butcher marks that they found. And it's known that humans did go after bone marrow and a lot of the big game, especially the big game that they found, largely for several reasons. One, it's nutrient rich, but also a lot of these humans, if they didn't find and catch the animal themselves, they would basically wait for animals at the top of the food chain, like lions or some sort of big cat or something. They would come and scavenge what was left, which was usually bone, and the only thing they could scavenge from that was marrow. So bone marrow, getting at the bone marrow with these tools is a very common way for these humans to have subsisted back then. And it's been seen in all other types of evidence as well, so it's no surprise that this marrow, or these humans rather, use these tools to get at the marrow. So that's part of the main reason why they know, or they strongly think that it was some sort of hominin, because no other animal goes after the marrow in that way. So the discovery supports the suggestion that hominins during the Middle Pleistocene, 781,000 to 126,000 years ago, this is the Middle Pleistocene, were able to build watercraft capable of ocean crossings and could navigate the South China Sea to reach Luzon from mainland Asia. There have been previous theories that there was a land bridge at the time when the water level was lower, that people from China came in and occupied the area. But in this case, I'm guessing there wasn't a land bridge back then, because the scientists are proposing that they built a watercraft. I don't know, it doesn't say if they found a watercraft, but I guess that's one of the things that's being proposed. And if that's true, then wow, that's incredible. If they were sophisticated enough to build boats from the mainland to the Philippines, then it follows that they were able to come up with tools to extract marrow and all the the desirable parts of a big game animal like a rhino almost 1 million years ago. So I don't know. I'm keeping my eyes open for this, but it is really interesting that all this stuff is coming out. I mean, this is cutting edge. This is this year. This is 2018. As far as the type of human, they think it may have been Homo erectus or even the Denisovans who were doing this. I don't know. There's no remains, so there's really nothing they can go by except the tools. But I don't know. Everything's up in the air. But they do know that it was some sort of intelligent hominin that was occupying the area for sure. Now, before we go on to the next article, I wanna talk to you guys about the people, all the different theories of the peopling of this area. So the prehistory of the Philippines in terms of academia and academics and what has been widely accepted goes as follows. So in 1962, they found a guy called the Tabon Man. Actually, it was about 3 individuals. Their fossils were mixed up in this place called the Tabon Caves, or Taban. And this dates between 26,500 to 16,500 before present. And then they used uranium dating on the skull and jawbone remains that they found. So this definitely belonged to a type of Homo sapiens, and it resembles those of Ainu and Tasmanian people, which I thought was a really interesting tidbit. So in 1962, this was as far back as the peopling of Philippines has gone. Flash forward to 2007, and they found the remains of the Calao Man, which basically they found a foot bone, a metatarsal bone, and with uranium dating, they found out that he lived 67,000 years before present, which was the previously held oldest date before the rhino remains and tools were found. Although they weren't sure if it was a Homo sapiens or a Homo floresiensis. If it was a Homo sapiens, that'd be really interesting, because I think a few thousand years before him was the explosion of Mount Toba, which was about 70,000 years ago, and that almost wiped us, the Homo genus, off the Earth completely. So the Calao Man is really interesting, and he happened to be in that near Mount Toba. I think Mount Toba is in Indonesia, but the Philippines is not that far away, especially for a mass extinction level event such as that. So it's really surprising that they found stuff that predates that almost tenfold. So these were all the smoking gun evidence leading up to this find. And then from there were a lot of different migration theories. So one was what I mentioned earlier, people arriving through land bridges 25,000 years ago. Another theory talks about the migration of people, the Asian Homo erectus from the Yangtze River in China, which was 250,000 years ago. That's another theory. And then there's the famous out of Taiwan theory, which here's a visual of a version of that. No, this is a map of the languages that spread. And then another theory that I thought was interesting was the core population theory, which if you guys look here, if you guys take a look at the lighter gray, this is the present day mainland, and then the lower sea levels during the ice ages. So this is what Sundaland, the supercontinent, looked like. And basically this theory suggests that the remnants of the people living here, they stayed after the sea levels rose dramatically, and they spread across Borneo, Sumatra, Java, became some of the Austronesian people here, and then in New Guinea, all the way up to the Philippines. They sort of lived there and evolved and developed without much migration going on. So basically they came from a core population, and that became fragmented within this region, and they just developed from there. So that was the theory now. Or that was the theory, one of the theories that existed. But now that these new discoveries came out, who knows? Perhaps this is true. Perhaps the core population in Sunda derived from these people in the Middle Pleistocene. We don't know for sure, but I think with more discoveries, if they could find some sort of metatarsal, a finger bone, or something from a human, then maybe a larger, higher resolution snapshot of this time in the middle Pleistocene could be elucidated further, and then you'll see me on making a video about that. But for now, there was some type of hominin living in the Philippines in the Middle Pleistocene for sure, who was sophisticated enough to either hunt rhinos or come across a rhino carcass and harvest its organs, whatever it is, its marrow, in a pretty sophisticated way. I mean, I don't know how to do that. I'm sure I can Google it, but if you take me as I am now and you bring me to a carcass, I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I could probably do the obvious and take whatever meat I can get, but as far as bone marrow goes, without taking a hammer and breaking it open, I don't know how to really carefully extract the marrow and use it without getting any bone fragments, ingesting any bone fragments or anything cleanly. I don't know. My point is that we don't know how advanced these people are, but they were advanced enough to at least do that. So that's some food for thought. Okay, so the next article has to do with the Neanderthal teeth. I did an episode on teeth maybe like a month and a half ago. But this one is interesting because I learned a lot about not just teeth and how scientists date them and how enamel is created, but I also learned that there was maybe not lead poisoning. I mean, there probably was lead poisoning back then, obviously, but then there was lead exposure among the Neanderthals. So they found these 2 molars of these young Neanderthal children in southeastern France. And what they do is they provided the earliest recorded evidence of lead exposure in hominids. So they're almost like time capsules, these teeth, because they found the chemical signature of these 250,000-year-old teeth, and they pinpoint them to specific times, which in this case is amazing. They pinpointed it during winter. So this is a time period when these children were exposed to lead. And that just boggles my mind that they're able to pinpoint it that far back, 250,000 years ago. So what Tanya Smith, she's an evolutionary biologist, she's saying that what's in our teeth are basically like timers, or time clocks rather, because the way the tooth enamel grows, it grows in layers in your mouth. So with each growing layer, it traps chemicals that you may have ingested, such as water, food from animals, and any contaminants that could have been in the food in the interim. So the Neanderthal teeth, they revealed layers with elevated lead levels at multiple points throughout this person's life. One of the things it revealed was lead exposure starting at about 2.5 months of age when they were infants. And then at 9 months it increased, and then it spiked just after turning 2 years old. So what the heck could they have been eating or drinking that was contaminating their teeth? So here's a visual. So anything in the green and the red are higher concentrations of lead, with the blue with lower concentrations. So this is a snapshot of their teeth. So with that information, the team was able to pinpoint when in the individual's life the lead exposures occurred. So like I said, it was in the wintertime when they were children. They don't know the source exposure to the lead though. However, there are present day lead mines 25 kilometers from where they found the teeth. So maybe these children in the family that they belonged to, they either inhaled the lead in the area or ingested it in the food they foraged. So for example, maybe there's some sort of edible plant living off the land where this present day lead mine was. The lead mine obviously didn't exist back then. Most likely it didn't exist 250,000 years ago. But the lead there's a lead mine there to this day for a reason, right? So it must have been that land must have been rich in lead for a long time. So it does make sense that it got into their system if they were living there, because obviously they found the teeth there, unless they were passing through. But I don't think that is likely, just because it can't be a coincidence that there's lead-rich mine within 25 kilometers of where they found the teeth. And even Smith even goes on to say this is normal ranging distance for a Neanderthal. Like 25 kilometers is nothing to them. They could forage there and come back. So it's not hard to believe they may have encountered some sort of deposit or consumed contaminated food. So just some food for thought for the day, that Neanderthals really, they were living off the land, and they weren't this mythical species that is their existence is questionable. I mean, it's legitimate. I mean, these guys were probably not just living in tight-knit groups, but they were pastoralists. They were surviving off the land just like our ancestors did, and they were very much vulnerable in the same way we are, as evidence in these dental records, essentially. So I didn't really think about that until this came out. So let me know what you guys think about these two articles. Any insights you guys can share with us about what you know about maybe teeth, or any previous discoveries in South China Seas? Anything I should know about the Philippines besides the other examples I gave you of the Kalau man and the Taban man? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.